to the cloud. All right, there we go. Okay, so we're good to go. So listen, yes, sorry everyone for the technical difficulties.
Oh, sorry, goodness.
It's definitely not the first time. This won't be the last.
Technology. So we're talking about improvements to technologies.
Yeah, improvements to blockchain. So you know what? It's one thing I don't know if anyone tonight got a chance to read the article in Forbes magazine. I'm going to put this link into the chat right now so everyone can see it and know exactly what we're talking about. There you go. I just put it in there. But this article is by Beiser Dimitrov. Okay. So, and he is Dimitrov. And he is talking about major improvements that are coming to blockchain in 2020. Now, let me just say this, because I read this. This is written primarily from an enterprise blockchain position. That's where he's coming from when he's writing this. And when we talk about enterprises, we're talking about the big, multinational conglomerates. You can just go on and on and on, and think about who those players would be. But that's where he's writing it from, is from that sort of position. So that's one thing that I do, take and understand that is the position that he's coming from. I guess one thing too, and because, sometimes on these talks, we have people that are new to the space themselves, so they may be just getting exposure. Of course, all of us are involved here now. We understand exactly what, how blockchain is looking to be utilized, the problems it's looking to solve. But I'm just going to highlight just four and why these four are very important for enterprises. First one will be decentralization. Decentralization primarily for the fact that as enterprises, as these big companies are moving and having and storing huge amounts of data for their own company, but also data for their own company, but also, customer data, all of this. It's really imperative for them to not have a single point of failure, And it's funny when we say this, or when we have these sort of discussions, I always think about the company that I work with and how that data, if it were to be compromised, in one point, just the effect that would have. You're looking at pretty much a company being shut down, everything being frozen until that becomes rectified. Dr. Keisha, you work in the school system with student data, and you look at your particular school. Like, imagine if that were to happen, and that data were to be like, and I saw this just recently. Forgot where it was at. It was either Ohio or Pennsylvania, something like that. But it was one of the CIOs of one of these places. But anyway, one of these hackers went, compromised their data, and put it for ransom. They say, hey, unless you pay us X amount of Bitcoin, we're not going to release your data to you. And they are pretty much left helpless to have to go into play along with that. So, that in and of itself just increases the vulnerability for these companies. And that's why blockchain itself is, so it's important, well, at least from the point of decentralization, of not having that honeypot there, where it's going to hit one spot and shut you down. So, but Dr. Keisha, you probably have something to add to that.
Yeah, I was just saying that I think essentially what you're saying when we're talking about enterprise blockchains, we're talking about these big conglomerates taking some of the the features of blockchain and applying it to their systems to save money, to save time, to get that extra layer of security. But I think what you were getting at too is that the spirit of blockchain is really to have a decentralized situation. But understanding that we are in the very early stages of blockchain, it's not likely that anybody that is a enterprise that is going to immediately start right in on a public blockchain, because for one thing, we don't have the infrastructure. The infrastructure is not in place. It's not tried and true. And this is exactly what they're finding even in their private and their permission blockchains. And again, that makes good sense. I mean, when this is early technology, we should kind of play around with it in some smaller sandboxes and in some specific use cases before we go, wide with it. So I'm actually encouraged by a lot of the new upstarts who are coming in and I guess I hate to call them making patches. I don't want to say making a patch for it, but the truth of the matter is, as much as the hype was so strong and just maybe just even a year ago or so about blockchain and it being almost the cure-all for everything, it has its vulnerabilities. And because of that, it allows for some opportunity gaps to be filled by some players here that are mentioned in this article.
Can I just highlight something? Fred just made a point.
Oh yeah.
And his point, he just said, "Hey, I'm more afraid of the big players grouping together to kill innovation." Now, see,
yeah,
that is the big concern of these, big multinational conglomerates being able to step in and now being able to corner a market and to just put a muffle on all of the smaller upstarts. And let's just be honest, that's, I think, is a concern even when we start looking at Facebook and the Libra, foundation is, you got to admit, that's just pretty much 100 corporate nodes, powerful corporate nodes. You have Visa, you have MasterCard. Any of them could step in and, wow, it's just squelch and just stop any other upstart idea from someone else. So that's where, and I got to say, that's where, when we talk about, decentralization, that is an example to me of it not really working. And it's more so, that's not decentralization to me in the way that I define it. That's more of a centralized, we're all, approach.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what's happening. Like I said, as the enterprises try to take it over, we are absolutely losing the whole spirit of, decentralization, which is to take out that middle man. But at the same time, we are looking at some players who are coming in, some upstarts who are coming in and taking advantage of those opportunities. They mentioned, Chainlink. Chainlink is constantly in the news, So, and who are they paired with?
Google.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. Google.
Yeah. And you got to think, and that's great because he did mention that. Because you have to think, when we start looking at smart contracts and we look at the auditability, where things smart contract is triggered, it automatically happens. But you look at that, and what if new data comes in and it needs to change? Well, Chainlink is going to allow the smart contract to be updated real time when data comes in, and that is one thing too, where to me, I think is the most exciting thing about this space is the amount of brain energy that has descended into blockchain. See, what it allows is when there's a problem and when we go, okay, and it's, before people go through their hands, okay, see, it'll never work because of this. And then it's back. What you don't realize is because we have so much brain power that's descended on the space that there are a group of people you don't even know in Singapore somewhere, in San Francisco, in Atlanta, in New York, somewhere that are already working on that problem itself. And then it comes out and you're going, oh, my goodness. Like how long did that take? Like that's the kind of thing, you know, that I think is really exciting about this area.
Yeah, and like I said, that's the part I constantly look at too. However, you know, back to what you're saying, you know, because it seems to go so quickly, you know, why is that? Is that because, like you said, some of the big deal guys have gotten partnered up with them and snatched that technology before, you know, it just was made available to everybody, you know. Yeah, but it's necessary. It's definitely necessary for mass adoption, though. Any type of limitation or vulnerability, any kind of approach to mitigating it does help forward the whole adoption process.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and one thing, and another attribute of blockchain that is very attractive to enterprises is the immutability of data.
Right, the features, yes.
Yes, where someone, once it's in, if, you know, the things aren't being changed to the detriment. Now, granted, and I remember like I had this conversation, Felicia had this conversation going, you know, there's always that initial point where the data needs to be inputted into the system first. And what if that's wrong?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's always my whole thing because you know, we're creating truth. So once 2 plus 2 gets in there and it's 5, that's the new truth, you know, kind of thing, you know, and that's a problem. So yeah, that, you know, that is the big deal, you know, process with this. And that's why these mechanisms have to be in place and to figure those things, you know, figure those kinds of things out. Yeah.
But the author in the article, that was one of the things that he mentioned is he talked about pluggable consensus, and it's his ability to switch your consensus mechanism depending on the requirements without rebuilding the entire network. This is the change now, is for when there is something that needs to be changed. Having the ability to be able to, you know, create that change, because we know mistakes are going to happen, but how are we then able to remedy and mitigate those mistakes, you know, from that point? And that was the thing too. I think that all of us, when we first started with this, that was probably a concern in everybody's mind. It's like, okay, that sounds great, but when something does happen, how is it going to be rectified?
Yep, and that's kind of what this article is talking about. They're talking about the improvements that can be, you know, made to those kinds of concerns. And like I said, what we're looking at is a lot of practice going on in the, you know, enterprise space with the benefits of decentralized ledger technology, just the benefits, not that they're creating, not that main benefit, which is what Satoshi Nakamoto was going for, you know, for total decentralization. So just in terms of, you know, interoperability, you know, that is a huge area that needs to be improved so that we really can see the you know, commercial type of applications that, you know, we can all, you know, easily make sense of, you know, because right now we talk about a lot of the benefits of, you know, what it can do, but until these not small, but until these kinds of improvements are made, you know, like you're saying, these network improvements, like being able to get real-time data into a smart contract with a chain link, or being able to have you know, the integration between the infrastructure of the network. Let's see, what were some of the things they were talking about in here?
I know one of the things he mentioned too was the enhanced security and analytics, and he talked about just detailed privacy controls over data, over smart contract execution and transaction visibility. And that is one of the things too, where we start looking to find that balance between public and private, between transparency and things not being able to be completely transparent. You know, one of the things, you know, this is on a side note, but this is kind of a company too, in the tokenization of asset space, that, you know, it launched in, you know, like that's Polymath, big platform, launched out, you know, stepped out, like one of the early ones that stepped out. But there's an issue. And I watched the interview with the founder of Polymath, Trevor, and Charles Hoskinson from Cardano. And one of the things that, you know, Trevor at Polymath said was, we built on top of Ethereum, and that's great. But he goes, Ethereum is designed to be open. And he goes, you know, if someone owns securities, he goes, that actually has to be private. So he's pulling it back now to create a brand new blockchain designed specifically for security tokens and how they're to work. And it's going to be called Polymesh. And Charles Hoskinson is going to work with him on this. So they're going to, you know, basically work to create it all anew. But those are the things that I can't, you know, you get started and you find out, well, wait a minute, this has to work in a way, you know, this it's going to be different. As much as we talk about, yes, the transparency and the openness of public blockchains, there's a point, you know, when we talk about privacy of data, where it has to be, you know.
Yeah, we have to come up with the other technologies and the other systems to mitigate that, you know. And that's what I'm saying. You know, it's no surprise that these big deal companies who are already in this space in terms of cloud computing and that kind of thing, you know, they want to take advantage of the next best technology, which definitely is represented by blockchain in terms of the benefits. And like I said, they're just kind of picking the benefits of decentralized ledger technology without being fully purely decentralized. You know, I mean, just like you say, you just can't. And here's the other thing too, it's good to kind of remember too, that, you know, blockchain is here, but it doesn't mean because it's here, it's eliminating everything that was here before. I mean, like in the education space, it had often been said just when computers came out that they was going to make the schools paperless. Well, that still has yet to happen. It's all, you know, certainly it's less, you know, we have less paper, you know, we certainly do. There's no question about it. But and that's the way I look at all of these improvements, which need be, you know, it's a new technology, you know, we can onboard it in this way using big companies in this case, you know, who actually are big deal, you know, players in this tech space and this you know, cloud computing space. It just makes sense that they would even be the first ones to try out some benefits of this new technology. So I am comfortable with that in that regard, you know, and because I know it's not an overnight thing for us to truly go to a completely decentralized existence, because that really means a lot of interoperability and a lot of questions that we have yet to really answer. So I'm actually, and like I said, again, very encouraged that with the birth of blockchain, that now 2020 is seeing some pretty significant changes in not just the platforms and not just the interfaces, which is definitely needed, but the infrastructures, the very infrastructures and the networks and the security, which having spoken with, you know, one of our, you know, BBC members who's in cybersecurity, he's always said to me that you would be surprised how many companies have cybersecurity as the afterthought.
Interesting.
So at the very least, I'm excited that these blockchain has its own built-in layer of some type of, security. But as we see, we still can use some other approaches. Like I'm really looking forward to that zero knowledge protocol layer being put on stuff that, along with smart contracts and that alone, those two things right there, I see so many applications for this technology. So I think this is great that because there were some new players in here that they mentioned in this article that I didn't know about. Like, Chainlink has been in the news a lot.
Yes.
I didn't know about, what was it, Kaleido?
Yeah, I didn't know about them either.
Didn't know about that one either. Okay, well, good. It wasn't just me.
Yes, no, yeah, I saw them too. Yeah. Can I say something too? Because you just mentioned zero knowledge proofs. And as I was reading that was something too that I was thinking about. And in case anyone is watching it, it's kind of like, oh yeah, zero knowledge proofs.
Yeah, that's right.
It's basically,
yeah.
Yes, it is basically to be able to verify a truth without us having to give up any of our personal information to do so.
Yeah, or give up all the information. A good example would be like presently when you need to verify that you're 21 to buy alcohol.
Yep.
You give your license to the clerk at the grocery store or whatever, and they not only know that to find out your birthday, they know your address, they know that you're a blood donor, or an organ donor, anything that they can see real quick on there, it's all there, whereas all they really need to know is what that birth date is. And be confident that that's a valid birth date, and it's already verified. So I really like that. I
do too.
Has a lot of applications for, just speeding information along. You just don't need to, particularly since everything is data, everything is digital now, that uploading of all of that data is not even necessary. You just need that little piece that you need and then keep it moving. And that's why I really am super excited about the smart contracts, because they just needs the information it needs. But again, the thing I keep rolling back on though, because as much as I'm excited about the technology, I am recognizing the limitations that exist. And I'm glad that others are doing the same and making strides to make some adjustments and mitigate those limitations.
No, I agree. One of the things too that the article mentioned was, he talked about it basically, blockchain as a service, and that's something that we've talked about too in our group. BAS, blockchain as a service. One of our partners, Dragon Chain, calls it blockchain in the box. That's how they want to do it. So so you don't have to be freaked out and afraid of how this all going to work. We've always said to get to a point where you're just using blockchain without knowing that you're using blockchain. Exactly,
where it's applicable, and it's going to coexist. Like I always say too, this is the other thing, it will coexist with, regular databases. There are applications where a regular database is still going to work. It's still necessary, it's still applicable, it's still appropriate. In the same way that we have all this digital stuff, and I still have paper. I still have some paper. I still have a spreadsheet. I still have lots of different things. So that's the other thing. I think we get so hyped on it, and we're, talk about blockchain that seems to be everything, and it actually has a place.
It does. It does. Like one of the things that I will say from them that he highlighted is the companies in this space. You look at Microsoft, IBM, Amazon. One of the things too with them already being on board, that they've already integrated and they're already using blockchain, and they already know how to work with these big multinational conglomerates, and they understand what they're looking for. So they're going to make a much more seamless integration for them. As much as seamless as possible. So I think, but and as we say that, let's not forget Microsoft, for their ID system, as we're talking about ID, they are using the Bitcoin blockchain for that. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Again, why? Tried and true already, right?
Yes.
10 years, over 10 years in already. So, I think that's a sound choice, to,
Yes.
go with something that, and I think that's essentially what they are kind of saying, with new technologies, this is a completely normal process to identify the bumps and then try to mitigate those.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But like I found that to be very interesting that they're going to use a public blockchain, for that.
Well, when we're talking ID, that's the best place. I mean, if you think about it, our ID is the more public, it's the public application. We're always wearing an ID around our neck. It's out there, it's public. We present our driver's license, and like I said, it's got everything on it. So that makes sense. That's like almost a natural public data point, I would think.
No, I agree.
And the fact that we have our profiles on Facebook, and my goodness, what all have we, we got all kind of stuff on Facebook. It's so funny how we might close off that we don't want our birth date to show in our profile, but we have our ultrasound of our newborn baby on Facebook. It's really,
Yes.
the poor baby already has a digital foot pic and it's not even out yet, that kind of thing. So
yeah, that's so true. And I have to be honest, that is one thing too, where to me personally, I'm way more aware and very selective about how much I, put out on Facebook or anything like this for that reason alone. I just think it's they don't need to know. It's none of their business. That's just, take it as it is. That's just how I feel about it. I'm much more about the sovereignty of the individual itself, and about us maintaining the sovereignty over our own individual person, rather than just freely giving all of that up for these companies.
But again, I also think too much is given, much is required. We say that, and then, okay, so now we have all our data, and now how are we protecting it? I was just having that conversation with my own daughter, like, I'm doing all this stuff in blockchain, I got all these private keys, and I'm doing this, how do I even outline it enough to pass it off to you guys to really, will you even know what to do with it, really kind of thing. So if the house burns down before I make that decision to get it into somewhere else or something, I'll be busted. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of responsibility. So as I was talking to her, it does create an opportunity though for, because we're always trusting someone, right? We're always trusting someone. So that might create an opportunity for someone to say, well, hey, I will trust this company to be my custodial data custodian kind of thing, whereas I did trust Experian, they failed me, but maybe somebody who now uses a new fresh blockchain or something like that is where they'll store their information. You know what I mean? It creates I like that. I say Perez says insurance data. It will happen.
I like that.
I mean, truly. And this is the kind of stuff we talk about here in Black Blockchain Consultants is, looking at all of these opportunities as they present themselves through the limitations, a lot of limitations. It creates opportunity. It's an opportunity gap. That's the way I like to look at things. Yeah.
Now, as we do say this, so this is be honest. So if that, okay. Because of that, then, now we're going to skew back towards centralization then.
Well, and that's my point. And that's kind of my point. It's not that I don't think we'll ever be purely decentralized for everything, right? Thinking about the fact in the same way that blockchain is not an application for everything. There will be databases. There still will be centralized.
Right. Okay, now Perez just said something. Perez, I'm about to promote you to panelist here.
Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that. Perez,
Perez, I hope your camera ready. But Perez said something there, and he's right. Leveraging your data for an equity play. I mean, that's true.
Yeah, that's an angle, absolutely.
And I forgot who I was listening to. It was one of these. It's one of these people who was being interviewed by Anthony Pompliano. I don't know if you see, follow him much on social media, but he's a big, he heads up the hedge fund, Morgan Creek Digital Assets, and he's a big Bitcoin bull. Now, but one of the things he was interviewing someone on this podcast, and they were talking about the internet itself, and he said the internet was never supposed to work the way Google, Facebook, and everyone has it working. It was never supposed to be where they are collecting our data and they are profiting from our data.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be that way. And that is a point of us imagining the world. And this is blockchain is the best thing that I've ever seen come along to addressing that. Where it can be my data, I own it, and a company could reach out to me saying, "Hey, Eric, you're a man of a certain age and ethnicity. We're doing this study. We would love to be able to collect some data on you." And I can say, "Okay, this is how long you can use it. This is the gateways I'll allow you to collect it on. This is what you're going to pay me." And there you can, that's a negotiation. That's
Absolutely.
how it works.
What I'm saying is that will coexist with those who would also say, "Hey, this is a lot of responsibility. I will pay so-and-so's XYZ, storage or data store to, be my custodian." I just believe that's a thing too, and maybe it's another blockchain, but that's that person's business. Like, let me be your data store, for those people who don't trust themselves, whatever, you know what I mean?
True. I mean, there are some older people who they're very intimidated by all of this. Absolutely. And they're like, "Oh man, I don't want to do it." But so they would probably say, "Okay, just like you said, okay, you can hold my data. You send the offer to me, I'll review it, and then, I'll give you your nay."
That's what I'm talking about.
There, so.
If we're trusting, we're going to have to trust somebody at this point, but at least you're still in the driver's seat of that trust vehicle. So that, and again, that option is even made available because of blockchain technology. So it's a tremendous thing. So and that's what I mean by there's space, I believe, for all of it to coexist, kind of thing. But again, just like how we are using less paper, and we're really early in. My goodness, we're so early in. I mean, truly, maybe some serious time in the way future that will entirely be a decentralized world, But we are super early. In which case, all of these, we will see blockchain as a service be a thing. We'll also see some, instances of public blockchain use. We'll continue to see permissioned blockchain, quote unquote, again, for us who are the purists, that's where we're at. So I guess we need to definitely wrap this up in 8 minutes, as I have the Education Product Committee meeting running right after.
I'll be hanging around for that too. But like one thing, just as we approach the space, I think it is important for us to approach it with a sense of balance. Because, and let's just be honest, some of us, like myself, lean one way a little bit more than the others. You try your best to be as balanced as you possibly can. But it's true. Like, there will be people that will still prefer to have physical cash, and those who will, they don't care. They don't touch it anyway now.
Exactly.
But there will be those companies that, for them, because one of the names that the article mentions, which we know they've been making major inroads, is the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance. So they have been working with all of these massive conglomerates, and they have been working with Microsoft, with Amazon, with IBM, and working on the interoperability space. They have the largest developer base out there. So, you have, you have a deep pool of people to be able to access and pull from. But I just say all of that to say that there will probably, it's really interesting to see how this is all going to work out, or how this is going to look 5 years from now.
Yeah.
If it will be like what sort of percentage, of companies that will be saying, hey, you know what? We tried the private blockchain. That didn't quite work out the way we wanted. It actually just increased our vulnerability. We're going to try public blockchain. We're going to try a hybrid method, or that sort of thing. Or maybe someone who tried a public, and found out, oh my gosh, this didn't work out either. So now we're going to go back to a permission blockchain. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how this all looks and works out, 5 years from now.
Yeah, and I think just like this article was kind of talking about, its focus was on the enterprise using elements of blockchain technologies benefits. It's just not that they're not using it just all over. They are using some of the features that may provide transparency. In some other use cases, they're using it for as a primary benefit, I'm saying, as to just save money or to save time, that kind of thing. And obviously the other benefits, you don't get just one without the other a lot of times, but in terms of a real data point to measure its effectiveness, they likely are going to prioritize those types of benefits. Which one are we really getting, some type of benefit from using this new technology?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, those are my final words. I don't have anything else. Anyway.
Yeah. Any? We don't have any. I don't see. Q&A. I don't see any questions. Looks like it's us in here primarily. So yeah, we're looking for Perez to show up in a few minutes. So I guess we'll shut down here for this meeting, and then give you a moment to catch your breath and grab some water and pick up with the Education Product Committee meeting up next. I feel like it's the virtual conference all over again. And up next.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, so I guess there is definitely another link. Okay.
All right.
So see you shortly on another link.
Yes. See you soon.
All right.
Okay.
You got the control. You shutting it down?
Yeah, I'm shutting it now.
All right. Good night now, all.